Hey, I'm Jason Wood, the VA Loan Guy and host of the Armed and Ready podcast. Please come and check out this exciting episode we have for you. Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Armed and Ready podcast. I'm your host, Jason Wood, the VA Loan Guy. Today we have Army veteran Jana Tobias on with us, who is a helicopter pilot and is now doing a bunch of stuff to help veterans in the nonprofit space. So, Jana, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, our pleasure. So, I want to get everyone kind of warmed up to what you do now and a little bit about your story in your military past. So, tell us, I think you went through the ROTC program, right? And went into the military that way?
I did.
So tell us a little bit about your why. Like, why did you choose to do ROTC or go into the military? What was fueling that for you?
I don't have a lot of military in my family. And I grew up around brothers, and I grew up around a father who treated me just like my brothers, taught me fishing, camping, hiking, all those things, taught me to drive a stick shift and all those great, wonderful things that make us just like everybody else, I guess. And I went to school in Santa Barbara, California, and I saw that there was like a recruiting pamphlet, and I was curious about it. I grew up watching Red Dawn with my brothers, playing G.I. Joe with rubber bands, like laying out the little tarp and setting up your little Army guys. And of course, G.I. Joe and Cobra and whatnot. So I kind of was surrounded by a bit of it, just like the desire to serve, the desire to fight and stand for people who can't stand for themselves. I think that was something that I always thought was really admirable, but I never thought it was something I would do. I didn't know it was something I was capable of or anything like that. So when I did go to college and I saw that there were programs where we could, dip your toes into it, I decided to give it a try, just really honestly thinking, oh my gosh, what am I getting myself into? This is probably too hard. They run too fast. But hey, I'm going to try. That was always the thing that I was taught, is you never knock anything till you try it. And so that's how I started. That's nice. Really, there was just that desire there, and I wanted to see how far I could take it.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned G.I. Joes, because I remember as a kid, I was a big fan of G.I. Joes and had all the different toys. And my buddies would come over and we'd go to war for a whole weekend, And
my brothers always made me be the Cobra.
You're the bad guy.
Always the good guys, of course.
That's funny. Yeah, and then for me, when Top Gun came out, that kind of sealed my fate. I was like, okay, I'm doing this.
Yeah, I can see that.
So Santa Barbara, awesome part of California to be in, like beautiful. What did you study in school?
I actually went to school to be in the medical field because I just had a desire to, do something that would help take care of people. I've always kind of been a nurturer, but what I didn't realize about myself at the time was I had no stomach for it. So I did go to school trying to be in the medical field. And once I joined ROTC and got all nerdy about it, I wound up switching my majors so I could get good grades and really get to the top of the order merit list and seek out the aviation piece.
Tell us a little bit about the ROTC program. What is college ROTC all about? What's it like?
It's been like 20 something years. So it may have changed a bit, but in Santa Barbara, honestly, it was very small. We had a small little trailer building on campus that was actually built in the Vietnam War time frame. It was called the Surf Rider Battalion. Just a small little program. You can imagine it's not the most likely place to raise Army officers in Santa Barbara, California.
Yeah.
We had a really amazing group of cadre, the staff, the officers and the NCOs that were in the military that ran the program. And it was a very, very solid program. So basically they offer classes in military science. They offer military history classes, 4 credits that you can earn at your college. Alongside other more interesting and fun ones like mountaineering and navigation, using a compass and a map, teaching you the old ways of navigating without cell phones because they didn't exist back then.
Yeah, that's right.
So fun courses like that. And then of course the physical training, which scared me a lot. But I realized it's just all a progression. So they offered scholarships. There were 4-year scholarships, 3-year scholarships, 2 years. They brought you into the common courtesies of the military, taught you how to wear your uniforms, how to march, how to go to the balls, and be part of that part, the cultural part of the military. So it was a very involved program. I started as a freshman and I didn't know how committed I was. And then I went for a scholarship and I got the scholarship. So I stuck with it.
Cool. And you loved it, right?
I did. Like I said, I became a big nerd, ROTC nerd with it. And I did every single thing I could possibly do, every class, every extra thing you could do. And it's really kind of a neat environment because they put you into positions of, leadership of different forms, whether you're acting as a non-commissioned officer in charge of, anything from keeping track of people, or like the officers, supply officer getting supplies to go to the field. So they put you in all the different roles, and then they grade you throughout your time in your college experience through ROTC, and it all kind of culminates, and then you try to get selected into the branch you want in the military, in the Army.
Nice. And so you decided at some point that you wanted to go into aviation. What was the draw for you there?
It's funny because you talk to pilots, and there's usually the pilots that seem to always have been looking in the sky and wanting to do it, and that's their passion. Like they grew up wanting to be a pilot. And then there's those others that always look at it like, oh, that's never going to be me. That's cool, but I would never be me. So I fell into the second category. I never grew up wanting to do it, but once I realized that it's an option to do in the military, and I could do the medical piece, I still wanted to do that medical piece. I still wanted to land and help people. And then that's when I really went for it. It looked really fun, and like I could actually contribute.
That's cool. So you graduated, got commissioned, and then went into flight school, and you ended up flying the Blackhawk. Is that right?
Yes, that was my first aircraft. Yeah, after flight school.
Nice. And how long were you active duty for?
9 years active duty. And then I took a year off, and then I joined the National Guard after that.
Oh, right on. Are you still in the National Guard?
I just retired last year.
Oh, congratulations.
Finished my 20 last year.
Nice. That's great. So tell us a little bit about, being a pilot in the Army. I don't think a lot of people associate flying with the Army, right?
Right.
I mean, they do fly a lot of helicopters, but that's probably not the first place you think of when you're thinking about pilots. So tell us about your flying experience. Any cool places you got to go, or hairy situations you got in?
Oh, yes. And yes, absolutely. So at flight school, it was probably harder than any college I ever did. And for the reason that we had to learn systems, you had to learn electrical systems, hydraulic systems. And I had never done something like that in my life. I could study something, I could write papers all day long, but having to learn to just use your hands and actually make an aircraft do what you are supposed to make it do, and learn the mechanical part of it, it was not the easiest thing for me. I will say I got into the first phase of it where you learn how to hover, and I was one of the last ones to figure it out in my class. And I actually for a moment said, oh my gosh, maybe I'm just not capable of doing this. Maybe it's like physically, like it's just not for me. Maybe I can't do it. And it really threw some doubt, but I got it, and then it was fine. But the places that I've been able to go with aviation and the people that I've been able to meet, it's such a different animal to be in the aviation part of a military service, especially the Army, because you have a crew. You are a crew with either the other pilots, the crew chiefs in the back. If there are no crew chiefs in the aircraft, you have a crew. Your mechanics are your crew. So you basically build really strong familial ties with the people that you fly with. So it becomes a family of learning to trust everybody beyond just a regular job, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Straight out of flight school, I went to Korea for 2 years, and that was amazing. I was an officer, so my first assignment was an air traffic service unit. And I was the only, there was only a commander, and myself as the XO were the only officers. And then I would go somewhere else to fly, a different unit to fly. Then I was moved and I was a platoon leader. So at the age of 22, I was in charge of many people and aircraft. And the unit I was in was a VIP unit. So we basically worked weekends. We worked any shift that we got. We had some pretty cool people come over from the States, congressmen, former President George Bush, and all his entourage. So we got to be part of that. And the terrain that we got to fly in, we got to fly the demilitarized zone.
Oh, wow.
And so those were really, really amazing experiences, landing right there at the DMZ, having to know exactly where you can fly and where you can't fly. And
that must have been kind of tense, right? I mean,
it was. And it was a lot of responsibility. Looking back, it was a lot of responsibility for a brand new pilot out of flight school, 22-year-old. But that's how the Army does it. Like, they train you and you get your marching orders and you go. And it's just an incredible experience. I really don't regret it at all, any piece of it. Korea was fantastic. Had a few fun weather experiences there. That's one thing that is different there is weather. You have you have mountainous terrain, you have shoreline, you wind up getting coastal fog very quickly. So that was pretty unique and neat. I enjoyed that.
Just hearing you talk about weather and stuff, like, to a pilot, that's a really important thing, is weather, and just how it impacts the aircraft, right? The different air density, the wind shear, visibility, all that stuff has a total impact on how you're flying. Are you going to be flying? All that stuff.
Absolutely.
It's a quick lesson in physics.
Oh, yeah. Physics, yeah. Especially in the helicopter, those parts are moving all different directions. So understanding what your movements with your hands and feet do to this giant machine is it's pretty interesting, actually.
It's fascinating to me to be in, having been in Korea, not me personally, but your story being in Korea, and just, now being a little bit more aware of kind of the tension between North and South Korea and all that stuff. Do you guys, when you're there and stationed there, do you experience or feel any of that type of tension and in the stuff going on between the two, or what is that like?
So I was there in 2000. So in 2001. So when we were there, it was more noticeable, the effect between the United States and South Korea, and our presence there was more noticeable to me because I was integrated into the culture there. As far as I was driving, I was going to the towns and going to the markets and everything like that. So I could tell that there was some tension as far as like, why is America over here still? Why are they in our country? But there were some incidents that happened while I was there that sometimes made it worse. But then also like 9/11 happened when I was there. So we became very quickly on lockdown for some time while we were over there. So I don't think it was quite the North and South tensions that I felt so much as some of the political things that were going on our own soil that kind of changed things a little bit.
Yeah.
Very interesting for sure.
So after Korea, now you spent some time in the Middle East as well, right?
I did. I deployed twice to Iraq, once with active duty and once with the National Guard.
Were you in the Gulf War? Or was it kind of post, or?
My first deployment was 2004 and 5. So we were one of the first units to go into Iraq. I think we took over from, I think what unit, I can't remember what unit it was now. It's so long ago. But it was back when we actually were still occupying some of the buildings that were abandoned. And that was our first place to sleep for a few months. And I did a convoy on the way in. So a ground convoy, which I did not sign up in the Army to do. I was a pilot. I'm like, why am I on the ground? But it was a good learning experience. I was in charge of a Humvee. And back then, the thought process was if you hit an IED, the explosive devices on the road, that they would want you to be able to get out of your vehicle quickly. So they took the doors off and they put sandbags at our feet. And then we were told to sit sideways for 2 days. And that was best we could. And that was our mode of travel into Iraq the first time. And then I also had to do the convoy on the way back out, but I was in an up armored vehicle by then. So a little different.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. And that was my first deployment to Iraq. I was a staff officer. So I was a battle captain. I sat in like an operations center at night and just kind of tracked where all our aircraft were and what they were doing, and coordinated air movement flights to get people places. So
Gotcha.
that was, speaking of hairy experiences, that was probably the one experience in my life that I did. I actually was saying my goodbyes a little bit in the aircraft. So I will share that with you because it is something that I will never forget. And those who were with me in the aircraft were still in touch to this day. Going back to that whole family thing.
Yeah.
So I was flying a night vision goggle flight. We've always flew in pairs. So there was a Blackhawk in front of us and then there was us. And we were flying back from bringing soldiers to and from a range, like a weapons range. So we still had to practice out there.
Right.
And it was night. And we had called final to come into our airfield. We had a checkpoint, which was a flame stack. And that was, you call flame inbound, or I think that was what it was called. And we saw that and we were like, okay, we're pretty much back to base. We'll be landing shortly. And then all of a sudden, our first ship kind of disappeared. And then we couldn't see anything. So what happened was they had made it in, but in between them making it in and us, we had a massive dust storm. I'm sure you've seen those.
Yeah.
And so at night, under night vision goggles, it just kind of swallowed us up. And we were in the middle of a dust storm. And you can't see anything. And you get, it's oftentimes like someone who's on the controls could kind of freeze up a little bit or have some issues making sense of what the instruments are telling you. And that's exactly what happened. We did get the aircraft under control and started trying to find our way to the ground. But back then there weren't very many instrument systems in place. And there was like an emergency GPS approach we could have done. So we attempted that and it did not work for us. So we had to do a missed approach. And so we headed towards Baghdad at the time. We are still in dust. We're still on instruments, still at night, still can't find the ground. Aircraft under control, but at this point, halfway between Taji and Baghdad, we started getting low fuel.
Oh no.
And so we're listening to the radios, and the aircraft trying to get into Baghdad couldn't get in. They were doing approaches, couldn't get to the ground, doing missed approaches. Like, well, we don't have fuel for that. So we basically had to make a decision to get our aircraft positioned by our GPS directly over an area that we knew was friendly, and try to bring ourselves directly down, knowing there's antennas. There was the giant weather balloons were out there. And so that was the only thing we had left in the bag.
Oh my gosh.
So we did that. And the crew chief in the back, one of them saw some of the lights from the, we call them chews, the living area for our soldiers. And so we were able to like, okay, we're going for it. And we found our way to the ground, but yeah, that was pretty hairy. That was probably the closest encounter that I had with not being in a great position in an aircraft over bad man land. So
what's happening in the aircraft during that dust storm? Is it moving you around quite a bit?
A little bit turbulent, but surprisingly calmer than I expected. And I don't know if that's because we were ultra focused at that point,
right,
and we were only concerned with aircraft control, and it didn't seem as turbulent as you would think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you made it out of there. Everything was safe. And you talk to us about kind of your transition from active duty.
Okay. So I left the active duty after about 9 years. My husband and I decided to start having a family. And he was contracting for a company in Germany. He was also military. So we left for about a year, enjoyed Germany. We had 3 kids by this point, and they're all really close together, in case you're wondering. So then we decided he wanted to fly. He was the guy who was always looking in the sky. He always wanted to be a pilot. And so he wanted to join the National Guard. He was active duty. He wanted to go into the National Guard. And so when we went back to the States, we both joined the National Guard, and we were in Texas at the time. So served, gosh, I can't remember how many years, like 8 years maybe in Texas in the National Guard.
Okay.
And then finished out our National Guard time in Massachusetts, where I am now.
Did he get to fly?
Yes, he did. He's actually, he just retired from the National Guard this month.
Oh, cool.
So now he's doing the airlines, the regional airlines. He got to do that transition, that rotary wing transition to the airlines.
So tell us a little bit about what you're doing now in the nonprofit space.
I moved to Massachusetts and I took a job with a corporate flight department out here in Western Mass. We fly the CEO, we fly any of the teams, anyone who needs to get to New York and Boston, mostly to do their meetings, to do their security checkups, whatever it is that they need to do. This company's had a flight department for about 70 years now. So it's a very strong Fortune 100 company, amazing company to work for. Couldn't have asked for a better job outside, straight out of the military. It's been a blessing. It really has.
For those that are, in that transition phase, what was your job seeking experience like? Did it just kind of fall in your lap, or how did you come across it?
The aviation industry is very much who you know kind of place. I will be quite honest about that, but hard work is a big part of it as well. In the military, being a helicopter pilot, you don't get as many flight hours as, say, like your fixed wing peers do. Right. And so you don't build that flight time as quickly. And if you ever were to look at the job forums or start seeking jobs, there are a minimum hours and required, and that's an insurance thing, basically. And so I would start looking at all the job postings. I would get on all the different online job listing like Indeed and all that, and I would start searching, and I taught myself what they're looking for, what aircraft types, how many hours they're looking for. Are there any other specialties they're looking for? Is there anything I can do while I was in the military to start beefing that up? So I joined organizations such as Whirly Girls, organizations that offer opportunities, scholarships, anything I could do to like start building my civilian, resume. Something else to show that I learned in the military. I did this job in the military, but I'm also able to seek and understand what is required in the civilian sector and how do I go for that. So I wound up getting an A-star transition through a scholarship through the Whirly Girls. And through that, I just started meeting people and started the process of building my aircraft. Like the A-Star is a very common aircraft in the civilian sector. And I knew that if I wanted to get even my foot in the door, I needed an aircraft that was easy to transition into. So that was part of it. So I sought opportunities like that. But then this specific job, I had a friend of mine grew up out here who I met in the military, and she went back home to finish serving out her National Guard time in Connecticut. And so she wound up through the people she worked for in the National Guard, who also worked in the civilian sector out here in New England, got her foot in the door, got her introduced to the right people, helped her build her resume, and she got the job, and then she did the same for me. So kind of like people pull you along the way.
Yeah, kind of the old adage, your network is your net worth, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's really exciting. What's next for you guys? Are you at a point where you're doing another 20-year like civilian career before you retire? Is that the game plan?
That's the game plan. Yeah. I'm getting a thumbs up. I got to go in a second.
Oh, okay.
I'm flying here in a few minutes.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
But yeah, that's the game plan. I plan to stay here as long as they'll have me. I've been very, like I said, very blessed to have walked into this job. This type of job is something that you kind of build up to usually, and have several civilian jobs before this. And I got very, very lucky. So I want to do a good job here. I'm the training captain now. So I am definitely building my experience and my knowledge, networking. You still have to do all that.
Yeah.
Even if you plan to stay in one place for a long time, it's really important. It builds the strength of the whole company.
And it helps kind of spread the character of the company is you, right? So, you're part of what they're building.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So yeah, I wish I had a little bit more time. There's definitely a lot of things that I did do that I hope I can help anybody looking for any advice or anything.
Yeah, well, I would love to have you on the show again, and we can talk more about that stuff. I think it's really interesting and helpful, I think, for people too, to just hear a little bit of your path and how you got to where you are. And I know, like for myself personally, like being a pilot was something that I always wanted to be and always wanted to do, and that was the reason behind me going into the military. And I think, everyone has their why, and what's the path, and how did someone else get there, and what did they do and have some success at getting there.
Definitely. The networking that you talked about is just incredible, because it's not just to get you somewhere, it's also to help you mentor others and share your story with others. And the organization that I just got selected to be a part of with the Pinups for Vets is just another branch of being able to help people and to share what experience I have in any kind of way that would be useful for anyone. So it doesn't end with one career or the other. It doesn't start with a career. It all branches off in many different directions. The networking, the mentorship, the help that you can provide, and what you're doing is especially amazing, where you can interview all these different people that, man, people just don't know how to even get involved. So It's great.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And thank you for carving out some time for us today. I know you got to run and fly, but it was really great to have you and learn your story. I'd love to have you on again, and we can share some more of your stories and advice and stuff you have for people. I think that'd be really valuable.
I would definitely do that. I would appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Jonna. Safe flying today, and we look forward to the next time.
Okay. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much for checking out today's episode. If you have any questions about the guests on the show, please reach out to me at valoanguy.us.